Yo, and welcome to the show all about promoting the sport of lawn bowls. I'm Zach Woning, and this is Casual Bowls. Yo, and welcome to Casual Bowls. This week we're bringing you something a little bit different. Couldn't get out to Lilydale to go catch up with Joshy, obviously due to COVID restrictions. Haven't been able to clean up the CJ episode as of yet. We're getting closer, so that should be coming to you soon. For now, Bowls Vic have actually released the draft of the draw and the draft of the conditions of play. Excuse the truck going by there. Having to film this during the day today, so here's what it is. I thought it might be a good idea to put the information out there, given that most people probably get their information at the club, just in general conversation, and obviously with clubs closed at the moment, you may not be able to hear about this stuff elsewhere. So I thought I'd tell you the interesting stuff, and because there is some interesting stuff, and maybe give you my thoughts on some of it, whether you care or not about my thoughts, but open it up to a bit of discussion. Speaking of discussion, get down in the comments. I'm really appreciating all the support we've been getting. I think we're up to 60 subscribers now, which is awesome. That's pretty incredible. And over 1,000 views over all the videos. So, yeah, no, it's awesome. Really, really appreciate it. But get down in the comments. Get some conversations happening. Talk about what you saw in the episode, what you like, what you didn't like. If you just want to poke some fun at me, by all means, do it. Everyone who knows me knows I can take it. It's fine. So back to this, the draw. Again, I can't stress enough, it is just draft, so just be aware of that. The draw is what the draw is. Go have a look when you want to. There was an email sent out again yesterday morning saying there might have been a mistake in it. I think I didn't see the email, but they will be redoing the draw. So yeah, I'm not going to bring you any of that, but as of the conditions of play, there's some really interesting stuff that's going to cause a bit of chaos this season. Let's get straight into that. Firstly, there's a small change on the cards with pennant permits. So previously you could apply for a pennant permit before the season started. Now a pennant permit is for those with dual membership, like myself. My primary club is Bayswater. There's our new shirts, by the way, looking really flush. Looking like we should be on the beach, but we're not, unfortunately. But no, I like them. They're pretty good. So we'll be rocking them this season. So my primary club is Bayswater. My secondary club is Vermont South. Now, if I wanted to play for Vermont South in Pennant this season, I'd have to apply for a Pennant permit. Now, you had to get them before the start of the season previously. Now you've got up till round 5, which is the Victorian Open break. Sorry, there's a bit of information here, so I will be reading my notes a little bit. We'll try and throw up some graphics too as we go, so I'm not just reading out numbers, because there's a fair few numbers in here. So yeah, pennant permits now eligible up until the Vic Open or round 5. Finals qualification. So previously you had to have played 4 games for your club in the specific division you were playing finals in, or a lower division. Now for Premier League and Division 1, that's now up to 8 games. So that could cause a few issues with some of your fly-ins and people who go away over holidays and sort of miss the back end towards the start of Christmas, and then maybe miss a few games into the second half there. So could cause some issues there. But Premier League and Division 1's back to 18 games. So Premier and Division 1, 8 games shouldn't be too difficult. It's not even half a season. And Divisions 2 and 5 will now need 6 games. So they're all going to stay at 14 games. Again, this is all draft, but it's looking like, unless there's a major backlash against it all, I dare say all of this stuff will go ahead. I quite like everything in here. I don't see any real issues with it. There's a couple things that might, cause some dilemmas, but I don't think it matters which way you go with half of this stuff. Someone's going to have an issue one way or the other. So Bowls Vic are doing the best they can to get back to the even sections. Last year was a bit of a shit show with 5 sections in Division 1. Unfortunately, that meant buys in the divisional finals. And poor old Brighton and Pakenham were on the receiving end of that and had to play. So not only did they win their section, they then had to play an extra game to qualify for the Final Four. And I mean, that's ludicrous. It's so hard to win your section in Div 1. And then to still have to play a game to qualify for the semis of the division is tough. So that will be no longer in Div 1. They will be back to 4 sections. Div 2 to 5, and well, it'll be 6 hopefully in the following season. But Div 2 to 5 this season will be back to, we'll stay at 14 games. So they're still going to have those buys in divisional finals. But just for this season, by the look of it. The way it's structured, they're preparing for the following season to get everyone back to 4 sections in Div 1 and 8 sections throughout the rest. So Div 2 to 5 will require 6 games to be played to qualify for finals. Out of 14, again, not even half the season. Shouldn't be too much of a concern, but it's news nonetheless. It's a slight change. Qualifying players for finals in lower sides. So for those of you, and I've done it myself, our second side might be making finals. We want to strengthen them up a bit because our top side's safe, can't do anything, so we drop a couple of players down in the last few games to qualify them. Now, this season, let me just make sure I'm getting this right. I don't want to present anything that's not correct. So 2 players, no more than 2 players are allowed in the last 4 games of the season to drop down if they've played the majority in a higher grade. So if you've played 10 games in Prem, in the last 4 games, you will not be able to drop. If you've got, say, 3 players who have played 10 games in Prem, you won't be able to drop all 3 of them down. You can only drop a couple of them down. Again, not that big a deal. Sort of, it still gives teams an advantage. If you can drop players down, you can. You know, good on you. But it lessens the advantage, which I think is good because not all clubs are capable of being able to drop players down, as some are. So I think that evens it up a little bit, but still allows for a bit of an advantage there. It is mentioned in the email that training will be provided. I'm going to read this directly. Training will be provided in webinars prior to the start of the season to help create a system to manage the qualifying of players. So obviously with unavailability, sometimes you just don't have the players there, and when you can only qualify those extra 2, I suppose you potentially could qualify a couple more if you drop them down earlier in the season. But regardless, Bolsvik are putting out a couple webinars. We'll put up the dates and times here. They've said that everyone's welcome. They're hoping they'll get as many as they can. Just to clarify all of this stuff, so it doesn't just cover this. I think they cover all areas of the changes this season. Now, to register for those, you have to register to get into one of these. Obviously, cost you nothing, but you just register through a link within the email. Your club secretary should have the email. If you want a copy, get it off them. There's a link directly into there. You click the link, you register, and confirm which one you want to attend, and then attend it when it's on. Now, these last 2 proposed changes are the ones that will spark the most discussion. These are different. One of them is an absolute necessity to get back to, like I was saying before, about the 4 sections in Div 1 and 8 in the rest. We have to do it like this, or Bolsvik have to do it like this to get us back there the following season. But firstly, there's one I haven't seen before. Every year this rule seems to change a little bit. So this season, as the draft says, practice before games will now be allowed for both home and away teams at the venue, and not only at the venue you're playing at, but on the rinks you are playing at. Now, we have had it in the past where obviously you've been allowed to practice at the opposition club, at the club you're playing at. Clubs have, it changes from year to year. We've had years where they couldn't refuse you, I think. They had years where it was up to them, up to club discretion, up to the home team's discretion, whether they allowed it or not. I know I've had plenty of issues in the past. There's a couple of clubs I've rocked up to over the years to have a practice, and they've sent me packing. other clubs over previous years have sent emails out at the start of the season saying there will be absolutely no practice, which is fair enough. If that's the rule, that's the rule. But this season, the home team must, proposed for this season, home team must allow 2 rinks and the 2 rinks you're playing on available to the away team for practice. I think that's fair. It takes away a little bit of an advantage, I guess, for the home side, but it shouldn't take away that much. You play there every second week, you train there all the time. If they get half an hour to an hour of practice in before the game, so be it. Big deal. I think it'll create better competition. Everyone will be rather than the home team getting a bit of a jump early, everyone should be on the ball from the get-go, and I think that'll create a much better games and much more competitive games. The only real issue I could possibly see with this is it doesn't specify times. It does give the time of 30 minutes before the scheduled start time of the game is when the roll-up must finish, but it doesn't specify a time of when it needs to start. So, there may be issues with preparation of the greens, rolling of greens, until Bolsvik actually come out and say it's at this time that you're allowed to start. It might be 11:30, so if the scheduled start time is 1, you have to be finished by 12:30. Maybe there's an hour, I'm not sure. It doesn't actually specify. So if someone from Bolsvik is watching, maybe jump down in the comments and tell us about it. If you can put in some more detail, or just tell us roughly when the finalised draft, the finalised draw and conditions of play are coming out, so we can all look forward to that. Other than the preparation of the greens, I don't really see an issue with the practicing. Like I said, I think it makes it fair. I think it creates a better competition. So, there's not really much more to that. It's just interesting that you're allowed to practice on your rinks, because I believe in 20-something years of playing, I think that's the first time that's been allowed. It's always been the rinks you're playing on have been sacrosanct, and you just can't do it. Let's leave that, because I want to spend more time on this one. Virtually 50% of the league is going to be relegated this season. Now, when I say the league, I obviously mean all the way from Prem to Div 5, Div 6. Not sure what Div 6 is doing. We might have a read of it at the end, but from Prem to Div 5 at least anyway. Now, I've already explained why this needs to happen. Div 1 needs to get back to sections of 4, which they are this year, but in doing so is going to have to force teams out. Div 2 needs to get back to 8 sections, which is going to force more teams out. And as those teams keep coming out, they drop down a division. It's going to force more and more teams down as we go. So progressively, as the divisions go down, more and more are getting relegated. So we'll just quickly go over the actual numbers of teams that are getting promoted and relegated in each division. So in Premier League, everything will stay the same in Prem. 18 games, 10-team section. No one gets promoted, obviously, and two will get relegated. So obviously, no brainer. There's no reason to change Prem. Now, Div 1, as mentioned before, will return to 4 sections and an 18-game season, which I think is excellent. I played Div 1 last season, and you need to be, if you're going to be one of the teams that go up to Prem, you need to be playing at you need to be playing the same level virtually. You need to be playing the same format, the same number of games. And given Div 1 is the precursor to Prem, I think that needs to be the same. So, and it'll fix the divisional finals. There'll be no buys in divisional finals, which is all good. But in doing that, and with 2 sections coming out of Div 2 the following season, what is happening in Div 1 is not only will the 2 bottom teams from each section get relegated, but an extra 2 teams will get relegated. So you could finish 3rd bottom, but have the lowest across the 4 sections, have the lowest points. Let's have a look here. Based off points, then shots, then percentage. So if you finish 3rd bottom with the lowest amount of points across the sections, you'll be gone, as will the next one down. It's really no different to last year, other than the sections going from 5 to 4, because you still had 10 relegations last year. You're going to have 10 this year again. But it's the two outside of the actual relegation zone, which is interesting because you're not only then fighting with teams in your section to avoid relegation, you're fighting with teams across the whole division. I imagine that will only be for this year. Once everything's back to normal again, only two will go out next season, I'd imagine. Div 2 is where things start picking up. For starters, you no longer have to win the first divisional final to get promoted. This season, well, for this season anyway, this season, the 10 section winners will automatically be promoted to Div 1. Obviously, Div finals will still go ahead, but you no longer have to win that first final. Actually, last year was probably the same, eh? It probably would have had to have been. Yeah, because 10 would have gone up. But prior to that, obviously, was a bit different. You had to win your divisional final. So relegation is where it gets really interesting. 26 sides out of Div 2 will be relegated. So 2 from each section makes 20, and the next 6 after that. So potentially, not only could you finish 6th and get relegated, but you could potentially finish 5th and get relegated in that too. You'd be stiff, but it can happen. Same rules apply, obviously. It's just the next 6 worst records. Div 3 will see the 10 section winners promoted. However, the bottom 4 teams in each section will all be relegated. Now, that's insane because, I mean, it must happen, and I'm not disagreeing with it, but it's still insanity. If you don't make finals, you're relegated. I mean, that's pretty rough, but it's going to make for an extremely cutthroat and interesting season. So, hence why I wanted to put this information out there. I spoke to CJ Sneary the other day, and he received this email but didn't go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So he missed stuff like this. And I mean, as a coach, coaches out there need to be knowing about this stuff. Players need to be knowing as well. I mean, you've got to be taking it seriously this year. Not that you would in other years, but this year it's very cutthroat. So every game's going to matter. Div 4, where are we up to? Div 4. Again, 10 section winners promoted. And the bottom 4. So actually that would be different then. I think Div 3 and down previously, the top 2 have come up from each section. Yeah, I believe that to be true. The top 2 from each section would have gone up previously. So we're only seeing 1 go up from each section this season until the sections even back out again. But Div 4, 10 section winners promoted. The bottom 4 from each will be relegated as well. So again, if you don't make finals, you're going down. However, it's a little bit different to Div 3 because there will also be 18 more teams on top of that will get relegated. So there will be 18 teams who make finals and still get relegated. So you almost have to make the final. I'm not actually sure, and again, if anyone from Bullswick is watching and can add some clarification, or just tell me to wait till the finalised conditions come out. If you were to finish, let's go back to Div 3. So Div 3 is just the bottom 4 teams, so if you don't make finals, you're out. And then, actually, I believe there's an extra 2. Yeah, so there is an extra 2 in Div 3. On top of the 4 that go out that don't make finals, there will be an extra 2 across all sections. Now, if you were to finish 4th with the worst record out of everyone who hasn't already been relegated, so you're in those last 2 teams, I imagine that will be superseded if you were to win the final. So if you make the sectional final, you're exempt from relegation, I would imagine. I'm not sure, but there'll be some maths to do at the end of the season if you get a bunch of teams who finish 4th winning finals. You'll get some 3rd place finishers finishing in relegation, which is a bit rough, but it is what it is. Again, it has to be done. So I'm glad it's just happening in one hit. We knock it out this season. Everyone just get through the carnage, and we'll come out next year in a better position. So Div 4 again. Yeah, the next 18 teams. So eventually, if you don't make the final of your section, you're gone. There'll be a couple lucky ones there. There'll be 2 lucky teams that don't make the final and survive. And Div 5, well, good luck. If you don't win your section, let me just double check this, the 10 section winners will be promoted. Everyone else is relegated. So anyone who's playing Div 5 this season, any team with a Div 5, any club with a Div 5, if you've got them this season, you won't have them next season. They're either going to go up, there'll be 10 that go up, and everyone else will go down. Because of, obviously, as it builds from Div 2 and down, you're bringing more and more sides down, and pretty much all of Div 4 is going to come into Div 5, plus a few from Div 6. No, so Div 6 and Div 7 were the 12-a-side and 6-a-side. Div 6 will then fill up the following season with all your Div 5 teams getting relegated down. I imagine then Div 7 would turn into the 12-a-side, and then a Div 8 will be introduced with the 6-a-side. So, I mean, that's good. More divisions across the board. But, I mean, crazy stuff. I would hate to be playing, I mean, I'm playing Div 2 this season, so already, if we're in that sort of relegation area, which, God, I hope not, don't deserve a job if we are. But if we happen to be, not only do we have to avoid that relegation, but then we have to avoid being in the bottom two across all 4 sections. So, I mean, it's going to be cutthroat, especially as you go down. But, I mean, there's not really much, there's nowhere else they can do it unless they progressively did it over a few seasons, but while stuff around with it, let's knock it all out the park this season. And then next season get back to normal. I think the real, other than the added pressure, obviously, the biggest issue I can see is going to be, it's going to fall on coaches and management of clubs to keep players motivated. So obviously it's hard when you're on the bottom of the ladder, you're not winning games. It's hard in previous seasons to stay motivated, and you sort of start getting, a bit lulled and go, well, what's the point? People stop attending training as much. With this setup this season, there's going to be, it doesn't matter if you're on the bottom or in Div 5, it doesn't matter if you're sitting 5th. At least top 4, you've still got a chance to make the final, win your section and avoid it. But the biggest problem is going to be keeping the motivation up and keeping the competitive spirit up, keeping people attending training and keeping sides full. I mean, you'd hate for people to extend their holidays because, well, what's the point? We're not, doesn't matter if we win games, we're still getting relegated. Hopefully there's not too much of this happening, but that's pretty much the only real problem I can see with it. Otherwise, I mean, it's a bit stiff for some. Say from Div 5, if you won Div 5 last year, went up to Div 4, it's a bit stiff for you having to then not only make finals at Div 4 of the division you've just been promoted into, but then even making finals, more than likely still going to get relegated. So a bit rough for those sort of teams, but it is what it is. Again, it has to happen. So I think I've rattled on enough. Just crazy stuff. We obviously couldn't get out due to COVID, so I thought I might bring you some interesting news while it's out here, and I'm not sure how many people will have access to this until clubs get opened again. So I think we'll leave it at that. We'll try and bring you, we're working really hard on getting the CJ episode up and about, hopefully soon. If we can get it up before next Thursday, we'll put it up as soon as it's ready. So many thanks to everyone getting around the show. Again, many thanks to Lee. I'm not going to give him a massive shout out this week. He's copped the brunt of a couple of episodes already. So and good on a couple other people. Ian Crawford, if you're watching, cheers for the shout outs with the beer, the 0 alcohol beer. Expecting my slab shortly. That'll be about it. So I'll leave you there. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. If you haven't watched any of the other episodes, go back and watch them. All the views count. They all add up. They all help us. Well, this week my beer's not done because I've been yabbering away, but I'm going to go finish it, and in turn I'm going to finish the show. So, cheers guys. Thanks.